a bill designed to make sure that foreign law, from whatever source, does not, by inadvertent action or neglect, weave its way into the laws of the state of Arkansas. That is factually what the bill is about. And as we went through the process and I testified, and if I go too long in the tooth, Paul, correct me, because I kind of live this on a pretty regular basis. We have given, and I think there are people that had my testimony taped, definitely on the House side. I think on the Senate side they may have had some other folks that were watching it. Check with your AP guys. But we gave examples. There's a very famous case out of California that is dealing with Japanese law in regard to estates. And the California court, I know you're going to be shocked to hear this, the California court went ahead and allowed that to be accepted, which totally violated the protections that are granted under the Constitution to those citizens from California. There was no due process. There was no opportunity for representation. All of those rights were denied. In most often practice, and the very most famous case is out of Maryland, happens to be an application of Sharia law. Mm-hmm. And it has to do with family court rights, specifically the rights of a mother and her daughter. The case is referred to as Malik. It's out of the state of Maryland. The thumbnail sketches this. Man and woman are married in the country of Pakistan. They have a child. The man decides he wants to divorce the woman, so he claims that she has committed adultery. She flees because under the laws in Pakistan, if it's proven so, she would be stoned. And the only ones that can prove it are him making the allegation or her having 4 men say it didn't. Okay? So she flees to the United States. He gets a judgment against her in Pakistan of divorce and to make him the sole custodial parent. Comes to the United States, to the state of Maryland, I believe it was the courts of Baltimore, and gets this judgment
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Yeah, isn't that, I'm telling you, there seems to be full-scale retreat from spending cuts, and they want to raise your taxes. It's just an amazing quote there from Ronald Reagan, and that is exactly what people who are not conservatives want to do even today. Folks, welcome to the program. You have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We're building a liberty machine here, and we want you to be a part of that. One of the ways you can do that is to call us or text us, 870-275-9799, or you can sound off on Facebook. We are broadcasting on Facebook Live as well as our YouTube channel live there as well. Conduit News, it's facebook.com/Conduit News. That's facebook.com/Conduit News. And as always, if you go over to conduitnews.com, you can get our podcast. You can find the video archives if you miss any part of the show. Let's say if you guys, some of you out there on the road right now driving to work, Maybe you can only listen to 15 minutes. Maybe you can only listen to the first hour. You missed the second hour. I kind of can tell this. I could tell, the vice versa to the folks who maybe just start listening when they get in to the car during the second hour. They can get the first hour. So just go to conduitnews.com, and it's pretty self-explanatory. You can figure it out from there. Podcast, video archives, and everything else. Okay, where are we going to start first? Let's start with a recap of yesterday. Yesterday on the program, towards the end of the show, we had Colonel Paul Deckert on the show. Colonel, do what now? Yeah. We are. Okay. So Joe's just telling us that for the online audience, we're actually playing that interview of Paul Deckert during our online breaks. So that's good. So you can get caught up on that. But so Paul Deckert with the Center for Security Policy, he was on because we were talking about Governor Asa Hutchinson's comments in relating to this American Law and American Courts bill that he did not sign. An American Law and American Courts bill. He did not sign this back during the last session. This was a law designed to protect us from international laws such as Sharia law, such as a law that is just completely incompatible with the United States Constitution, okay? And yet there are examples of people arguing that this law gives them standing and you need to respect this law, and Colonel Deckert gave one good example of that, but there are others that are actually more disturbing. Specifically, though, I just want to remind everybody, if you were listening to what Colonel Paul Deckert said, and we made a separate YouTube video of this, but when the governor came out and was responding to the criticism that he is receiving from Jan Morgan, his Republican challenger in the gubernatorial primary, he says that the law wasn't necessary, and the reason he didn't sign this law protecting us from Sharia law or being ready when there is this leftist pendulum swing where they're going to start demanding this, which we have seen in other parts of the country. And we, of course, know what the left, how the left is all about victims and creating new victim classes and everything else. The governor says he still thinks, and go read the Talk Business and Politics quotes, he still thinks that it was unnecessary. This is his statement on that. I have practiced law for many years in Arkansas. We do not have Sharia law in Arkansas. Well, duh. We all know that, Governor. He goes on, let me be clear. I oppose Sharia law. Okay? I'd love to know why. That'd be great. I'd just love to hear him talk. Just off the cuff, why you oppose Sharia law. Furthermore, I oppose Sharia law being used in Arkansas courts. Okay, good. So we all do. The legislation in question addressed the application of foreign law, not Sharia law. Well, Sharia law is a foreign law, Governor. So, I mean, you're trying to make a correction here. Why? We need to stop passing unnecessary laws that attempt to address problems that do not exist. I allowed the bill to become law even though I thought it was not necessary. So he didn't sign it. He allowed it. He didn't want to put his name on it, didn't want to endorse it, didn't want to take the potential heat that you get from leftists when you have states like this that have adopted an American law and American courts bill. Now, George Jarrett editorializes and says, as to Sharia law, Governor Hutchinson said the legislation was a solution in search of a problem. Now, a solution in search of a problem, pretty much synonymous with this was a bill attempting to address a problem that does not exist. That's Governor Hutchinson's actual statement, with some verbiage changed. But so here's the thing. Yesterday on the program, Colonel Paul Deckert, you know what he said? He said that he hears those phrases, those buzzwords, when he is debating in committees across from ACLU representatives, the American Civil Liberties Union. They don't like this bill. They don't like this concept of being left of bang, meaning, and we talked about all of this, being ready, being proactive, being a leader in case you do have something that happens. They don't. It's just the ACLU doesn't want this. The liberal leftists don't want this. They really don't want states even knowing what Sharia law is, what this slow creep is. There's already when it comes to different civilizations, when it comes to Western civilization versus civilizations that are run by Sharia law. You can go look at the, Muslim Brotherhood representatives, or it's actually the CARE people, the Center on American Islamic Relations. Those folks are always talking about bridges We've got to build bridges into America, right? Just it's important for you to understand that those bridges are one-way bridges. We're not talking about putting churches in Mecca, you know. They're not going to go for that. They're not going to go for putting churches in Mecca. We're talking about importing, a culture, civilization that, if it's based around the governing principles of Sharia law, does not and will not be able to exist here. When you're talking about the subjugation of women, well, in America, we have equal protection under the law, and we treat men and women the same under the law. Well, not in Sharia. And by the way, that's what is so hypocritical, especially when we have people on the left that are now debating that not only are men and women equal, there's actually no difference biologically between men and women. Now, I obviously disagree with that, but you see the hypocrisy here from the left when they will not. It's all about selective outrage, and of course, the left, they use the victim mentality. They got to have victims to achieve power. You know, you're the oppressor, you're the victim, and that sort of thing. But then they'll ignore other human rights violations when it doesn't suit or fit their political agenda. All of that being said, of course this bill was necessary. And if Asa Hutchinson, by the way, who in his previous statement criticized Jan Morgan for criticizing him, calling him a Democrat, calling him not conservative. He says, I think to say I'm not conservative is pretty hilarious. When you've been criticized as long as I have for standing for conservative values, you wonder where Jan has been for the last 40 years. Well, let me just say this. Where's Asa been for the last 4 to 6 years here in Arkansas? Or before he was in office? Where was he when Republicans were attempting to get American law and American courts bill passed and couldn't because there were so many Democrats down there? Can you imagine the shock on Republicans when they were like, why doesn't Asa support this? Oh, because there may be protesters. There may be people who are, against sanctuary or for sanctuary campuses, or there may be people that are for the LGBTQ, new protective class goals, or there may be people who are going to say this bill is anti-Islam when it's not anti-Islam. There's nothing anti-Islam about being, anti-Sharia in the context of, hey, you know what? As long as you don't break our laws, yeah, you can practice your religion, do what you want to do, worship who you want to worship, right? Live and let live, as long as you're not going to affect somebody else, as long as you don't think you have the right to subjugate other people because they don't subscribe to your religion, as long as you don't think you have the right to physically harm somebody, or, if your daughter's too westernized, you think you have the right to kill them. I think we're going to draw the line there, buddy. But and I think every reasonable person should agree with that. So that's recapping. And by the way, you go back and listen to that interview, Colonel Paul Deckard. It really is just such a reasonable. He's such a reasonable guy, and the way he presents his arguments, you can understand why the bill got passed. He was down at the Capitol. He was down at the Marble Palace. Testifying for why this bill is necessary. And you can see that the legislators around the committee table agreed with him because he makes an incredible amount of sense. And because he makes an incredible amount of sense, it got all the way to the governor's office, and the governor's office refused to sign this bill that is, anti-international law, anti-Sharia law. I mean, let's be honest. Nobody's really worried about German laws nobody's really worried about that right now. We're not worried about, some random German law being argued in an American court. It could happen. It certainly could happen. But most people aren't worried about that. Right? So that's why it is entirely reasonable to call it an anti-Sharia law bill, because that's what it was, and that's what was passed. And you didn't want to sign it because you knew it was called an anti-Sharia law bill, and you didn't want to take the flak. And that's our governor for you. So, that's the first thing. The second thing is, of course, Governor Asa Hutchinson's biggest promoter. Do you know who Governor Asa Hutchinson's biggest promoter is? John Brummett. So because of all of this, because of this being in the news cycle, John Brummett feels the need to go and support and promote Asa Hutchinson like he always does. The conservative columnist John Brummett. Obviously, I don't know if you're picking up my sarcasm, but he's clearly one of the most liberal, progressive journalists in Arkansas. And yet he continues to support Asa Hutchinson. Birds of a feather, am I right? So his headline, his opinion piece, nope. Still no Sharia law, he says. And he kind of, editorializes this whole thing. And I just think it's hilarious. I kind of feel like John Brummett is like he's like Don King. And remember Don King, the fight promoter? That's what he's doing. He's out there constantly trying to promote Asa Hutchinson and, wants everybody to know how great he is. John also called the governor valiant the other day in his piece, in a different piece. Well, he called the line item veto scheme a valiant scheme. Valiant scheme. I don't know. If you asked me to put two words together that are supposed to kind of contradict one another, valiant and scheme would probably it's pretty good. I don't know if I'd come up with those. A valiant scheme. It's a scheme, but it's good. It's a good scheme. It's valiant. Valiant. You don't really hear that word very often. Valiant. Eddie Valiant from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. That was the character's name. That was the detective's name. And Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Eddie Valiant.
Let's real quick. I need to say something.
Yes, go ahead, Joe.
Okay, so I looked up the definition of valiant just to make sure I completely understood the meaning of the word.
It's kind of very like Knights of the Round Table.
Well, yeah, it's possessing or showing courage or determination.
Ooh.
Yeah, so saying that
valiant scheme,
that he doesn't want to sign something, that doesn't seem very valiant to me or very courageous to me. It seems kind of cowardice to me.
Well, it's two separate articles. I'm sorry if I got confusing. So we were talking. One is about the Sharia law. The other one, where he called Asa's scheme a valiant one, had to do with the line item veto.
Yeah, that doesn't seem the line item veto thing doesn't seem valiant. It seems kind of cowardice to me. He can't do it.
Was. Oh, okay. Yeah, you're exactly right then. Yeah. Totally. It lacked courage. Completely lacked courage.
It had determination.
Yes.
Because he was determined to get that stuff out of the bill.
He was determined to fund Obamacare in Arkansas. Yeah, that's really good. So Brummett says that Jan Morgan said the other night in the Jonesboro area Tea Party event that Asa is a Democrat without meaning it as a compliment. Why would she mean that as it? That's because he tries to make government work, and in fact has made it work. Oh gosh, this is fantastic for Jan Morgan. Keep writing these, John Brummett. Congratulations. Keep writing these, John Brummett. And by the way, all of you Republicans who used to couldn't stand John Brummett, how is it? How does it feel to be his biggest fan now? All you guys are right. I mean, if you guys are in with the good old boy system, all of you state reps who go along and don't really have much of an independent thought when it comes to how you're going to vote. You just kind of vote how you're told. You vote because you respect the power that Asa and the family has. But come on, even you guys can see that this is ridiculous. Let me tell you something. Instead of blaming conservative groups for your bad scorecards, maybe just look at some of the evidence, the circumstantial evidence out there. John Brummett's praising what you guys are doing. That's why you have bad scores. Because you're following people like Asa and the nephews who are getting high marks from John Brummett over and over and over again. So don't look at all these conservative groups, Conduit for Commerce, American Conservative Union, Americans for Prosperity, Family Council, and blame them. Oh, somehow there's some vast conspiracy they're coordinating to all. No, maybe you should just look at some of this other evidence and say maybe they're right. They're just scoring our votes. They haven't changed. We're the ones who have changed because we used to think John Brummett was on the other side, and now John Brummett is writing our praises in column after column after column. And when Jan Morgan, who calls him a Democrat, and it was in a joking way, but it was also serious. I mean, there was a thread of truth into it. That's why it was a really funny moment, because I was at this event. What happens? John Brummett said, well, the reason she's calling him a Democrat is because Asa tries to make government work, which according to him, is a trait characteristic of a Democrat. And, in fact, he has made it work. So if a Democrat is someone who tries to make government work, and Asa has succeeded at that, is he, in fact, a Democrat? John Brummett, please keep this up, man. I'm telling you. Your endorsement, I mean, you know, he even admitted it a couple of weeks ago that every Republican John Brummett endorses ends up losing in Republican primaries, like John Burris, for one thing. He endorses John Burris, all because of the private option. Guess what? We have Senator Scott Flippo, thankfully not Senator John Burris. Although it's worked out better for John Burris financially because he lost, because now he's a very, he's a lobbyist with a lucrative, lucrative career. Okay, we're going to take a break. This is Conduit News Radio. I'm Paul Harrell. Good morning to everybody out there. Back in just a moment.
In Arkansas, every single hour there is a politician not getting what they want. For some, it's an absolute nightmare. The sleepless nights wondering if progress will ever come. Lying awake pondering how to grow government in this political climate. Asking questions like, why don't my constituents want to pay a few cents more in taxes? Everyday politicians feel abused and neglected. These politicians are starving for power. They're hungry, confused, and they don't understand why no one seems to care. Will you be a patriot and commit today to help these poor, starved for power public officials? It's simple. All you have to do is commit to stay silent and never dissent or stand in the way of your politicians' rise to power. Never speak up or get engaged to stop the growth of government. By committing to these simple steps, you will ensure the life of your politician will be filled with contentment and the respect they are desperately seeking, as well as campaign contributions from lobbyists.
This message brought to you by Aristocrats Serving Arkansas.
PHP Parody. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
We're talking about Joe and I are talking about this this video. We're hopefully we're gonna get out there. We've got a new parody that is pretty much done. We gave the Patreon audience a sneak peek. By the way, you can check that out if you want to go to patreon.com/CNR. That stands for Conduit News Radio. That's patreon.com/CNR. If you want to, if you want to be a part, you want to help the program and get a little extra content, you can, start with as little as $5 a month and support us. And of course, so we've got this new parody coming out. We'll probably get it out next week sometime, and we're gonna have a video with the words. It's a music parody, and it's set to the Who. We Won't Get Fooled Again, and it has to do with Asa Hutchinson, because He's a conservative, we're told, and yet we voted for him, and now we have evidence to the contrary. We won't get fooled again. Anyway, you just stay tuned for that. We're going to be putting out the video and everything else. So, phone number 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. We'll be checking in with Mr. Bob Bailey coming up at the bottom of the next hour. Bob Bailey's a Republican. Again, you've heard him on the program several times, senatorial candidate for District 16. He's running in a three-way primary. But from what I can tell, as far as fundraising goes, you have basically two candidates, Bob Bailey and Breanne Davis. Breanne Davis is supported by ASA. Breanne Davis is supported by all of the lobbyists in Little Rock. And Bob Bailey is supported by folks who just want to give liberty back, of limited government. Bob Bailey's not supported by the status quo. I mean, first of all, he's on this program, which is anything but status quo. So what does that tell you? So anyway, and we've done the breakdowns of the different groups and the financials and everything else. We may have an update on that, find the financials and stuff, I'm told, probably tomorrow sometime. But anyway, it's a very important race. It really is. I was told by somebody who was on the Bailey campaign yesterday that somebody came out of the voting booth or the voting facility, walked up to the Bailey campaign and said that they were listeners of the show, of Conduit News Radio, and that they had heard Bob on there, and that this medium, that hearing him is what convinced him of which decision to make, and the decision he made was to go vote for Bob Bailey. I thought, hey, that's good. That's productive. That this is. And that's what we want you to do. We want and look, Breanne Davis. We've had Luke Heffley on, who's the other candidate. We've had Bob on, and we've tried to get Breanne on, but she's scheduled with us, and she's scheduled with us, and then she canceled, and she never got back in touch with us as she said she would have. Now, from what I can tell, if my gut tells me anything, and this was back before we knew her financials, this was back before we knew that she was being supported by every lobbyist in the state, every special interest group, and we have the invitation with all of their names on it, and which lobby group they're tied to. I think she scheduled an interview on my show, and then she was told to cancel it. That's my speculation, because I think. I think they know that the type of questions you get on this program concerning big government programs are going to be very just blunt about, hey, do you support Obamacare Medicaid expansion in Arkansas, or Arkansas Works, or whatever ASA wants to call it next.
This foreign judgment accepted in the state of Maryland as the judge who probably had a gazillion things going on, probably had some criminal cases, maybe had somebody else's estate in front of him, and had this domestic case where they were going to, what we call in Louisiana, they were going to naturalize this foreign judgment. And goes ahead and says, well, that's the laws in that country, and under the principles of comedy and so forth, presto changeo, give up the baby. You're divorced, give up the baby.
Wow. And
they, of course, fought it and appealed it and so forth. And that's how we know about it, because it went to an appeals court. Now, this is just the blind acceptance, this lady. This was done in absentia. She did not have a right. They could have gone through the divorce proceedings here in the United States. It's not saying they couldn't go through the proceedings. It's just that the proceedings, that where you did it and how you did it, denied this woman, who was at the time a U.S. citizen, denied her right.
Yes.
Okay? So that's kind of what we're talking about. That's kind of the impetus. That's where you get, that's where you get the motivation to make sure these things are done correctly, because there are real people out there that really get hurt when these things are done. And pardon me for droning on a little bit here, but some of the things that the governor said, I was recently asked to speak with some folks in the state of Idaho in regard to this, and I had the ACLU came out, and gotta love them. You see them doing the devil's own work everywhere they show up. God love them. But the ACLU folks said the same things that the governor said in your article. And that's why I know it's a canned line, because I hear it all over the place.
So you're saying ASA is taking the same line that you've heard the ACLU make in other states?
Yes, that is exactly what I said. And the canned line that the ACLU uses in other states is, and their supporters and their acolytes, is this is a solution in search of a problem. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're going to rewind the tape on that. This is a solution in search of a problem. Anyone who uses a line like that does not grasp Leadership 101. Leadership 101 is proactive and forecast solutions prior to the problem existing.
So let me stop you.
Example.
Yeah. Let me. I want to hear the example, but let's just read the beginning. You've laid it all out using ACLU talking points. You've laid out the case in Maryland where we do have this international law, from a civilization that is not compatible under the U.S. Constitution.
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Later on in the show, we're probably going to get to a little article over at Conduit for Action. You guys can head over there now if you want to get ahead of this. Headline, ASA's Politics of Candy and Soft Drinks. We'll talk about that. But I want to start this particular segment by talking about a story that maybe you don't know a whole lot about. It has made the news in the last couple of weeks. It's about C&H Hog Farm in Newton County, Arkansas. There's a hog farm that is 6 miles from the Buffalo River. And these guys, bless their hearts, they have been put through the ringer. The government has been harassing them. The Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality has, they granted them a license. Then they, tested all these soil samples and everything else. We've got all the headlines, and we're going to go over that later in the program today because this has been going on for a very long time. But it's back in the news now because recently the Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality, who's headed by Doyle Webb's sister-in-law, has now denied their permit. And so you have this family that is it's a family business, hog farm. They've done right by what the government wanted them to do, and yet the environmentalists are winning. And these are environmentalists. It's important to understand this, and I can back this up. But the Buffalo River Watershed Coalition, okay, if you look into who funds those groups, eventually you're going to find a group called Earth Justice. And Earth Justice is funded by George Soros. And right now, it is very important that you understand something with C&H Hog Farm and what they have gone through, okay? The radical environmentalists that are funded by George Soros are winning in Arkansas right now. And I, for the life of me, do not understand why Asa Hutchinson's Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality is kowtowing to the likes of the Sierra Club, Earth Justice, and George Soros. Well, I mean, at this point, maybe I can understand it, but it just needs to be talked about because it is one more piece of evidence that you can add to a growing list of liberalism and progressivism. And honestly, I would hope for this family and this agriculture industry. This is only the beginning. If they take out this hog farm, they're going to come for chickens next. They're going to come for cattle next. And it's just really, really, really unfortunate. Now, thankfully, candidate for governor Jan Morgan was in Newton County shedding some light on this, and it's people have taken notice of it. The liberal Arkansas Times has even written, hey, Jan Morgan is now weighing in on this controversy. Jan Morgan was able to interview the family of C&H Hog Farm, which is it's an exclusive because they don't really want to talk to media, okay? And so here it is. Let's play this video. This is Jan Morgan from Newton County. This was last week where she interviewed this family that's been put through the ringer. Listen to this.
And when I came to Newton County, I came here already knowing about a controversy that has people absolutely livid. I'm going to give you just a little bit of an overview, and then I'm going to let you listen to the people, the family affected by it, and let you meet them and hear their story. But basically, if I'm going to put it in a nutshell, you've got economic elitist environmentalists, picture that, coming into your state and allowing and using your state government paid for by your tax dollars to harass you and to run you out of business in a situation where your business hasn't been cited for any wrongdoing, hasn't been cited for any violations, according to these people, and at the same time, the environmentalists are pressing the government to put these folks out of business. We're talking about C&H Hog Farm. I'm in Newton County, Arkansas, and I want you to meet the Henson family. Tell the folks your name, and I want you to just give them a brief overview of what you guys have been through with your business. What has happened to you over the past week? You've been going through this for about 4 years?
Yes, my name is Jason Henson. I'm one of the co-owners of C&H Hog Farms. We started our operation about 4 years ago, and it's been an emotional roller coaster ever since. It's like we cannot do enough to appease the environmentalists.
Okay. And so at stake here, what they're talking about is the Buffalo River, which many of you probably have been on the Buffalo. I have. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's pristine. It's just an amazing tourist attraction for Arkansas. People love to come to the natural state. And the deal is, you know, you can understand if this hog farm, which is, what, about 6 miles from the river? Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. It's 6 miles.
6 miles from the river. You can understand if they were dumping massive amounts of waste into the Buffalo and there were big, clumps of contamination floating down the river. You can understand why environmentalists might get upset and want something to be done about it. But that's not the case. In fact, our own state university has done testing on the river around this site in the area of Big Creek, which flows into the Buffalo River, where this hog farm is, and tell us about the results of those tests.
Their test has been going on for about 4 years now, and we have shown no degradation of the water in any way, shape, or form.
Right. And so, have you guys ever been cited by Department of Environmental Quality, the Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality?
Absolutely not. We have absolutely no violations from the Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality or from the EPA.
Right. Okay. And so I would call you a family hog farm, even though you've got a big company that comes in. But tell people basically what it is about your business that they say is causing a problem.
Well, they are saying that we are polluting the Buffalo National River, which is absolutely false. It's a false statement. We have rules and regulations that we follow. There's no way that we are doing what they're saying we're doing. Like she said,
there are no tests. There's no tests that show that pollution. In fact, the tests show the opposite, the contrary. To the contrary, no pollution.
That is correct.
And what was it? That one test that they did that they said that actually the water that's coming off of your ponds, your holding ponds, is actually cleaner than the drinking water in the city of Jasper?
Well, the Big Creek, which runs beside our farm, is actually, the nitrate level in it is actually cleaner than the Jasper City drinking water.
So you've got holding ponds where the waste products from the hogs go into. And those holding ponds have liners, which you actually did more than the state required on the liners. I think you did, an 18-inch clay liner, and the state only requires what?
That's correct. The state only requires 12-inch liners.
Right. And so are they saying that the liner is leaking?
Well, our opposition obviously says that our liner is leaking.
Your opposition being the environmental elitists who aren't from Arkansas.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality actually required a study to be done on our farm, which was the harbor drilling study, to assess the integrity of our liners. And that assessment actually came back to our favor to prove that there was no leakage from those liners.
Okay. So there's no proof of any leakage. In fact, the tests prove otherwise. There's no proof that you're contaminating the water supply or the water that's going out and that runs into the Buffalo. So what is the proof? What is the basis of the fact that the Department of Environmental Quality now has denied their permit? Now realize these people already had a permit to operate a business here, and then the state decided, well, we're going to have a new permit, even though when they opened up business, invested how much money in your business?
$4 million.
$4 million. Okay, so here you go. These people did everything by the rules, did it the right way, did the right steps, got the permit, operating under the regulations of the permit, not found in violation of any of the regulations, according to them and according to all this paperwork. Let me show you this paperwork, folks. You want to see what your tax dollars are paying for? Look at this. Look at this. This is an example of your tax dollars hard at work,
harassing people,
going after Arkansas family business. There you go. Your tax dollars hard at work, folks. So now the state says you weren't in violation of any of your permit regulations, but now they've decided you're going to have a different permit. And now that you've applied for the different permit, what are they saying about that?
They've actually denied our permit.
Based on what?
Based on deficiencies that they're holding us accountable for that they never even advised us of previously. And additionally, those additional deficiencies are things that other hog farms in the state of Arkansas have never had to provide.
So what do you guys...
All right, so stop for a second. Stop.
I mean, this has been going on for years. You've spent, what?
That is Jan Morgan, who is doing an excellent job. I just want to stop for a second. Isn't it amazing that she's running for governor and she's willing to do stuff like this? She's willing to bring attention. Of course, she's been doing this her whole career, but this. I'm just saying, I'm really thankful. I'm just really thankful that this is. They are changing the rules on this business after there's already been an agreement as to what is expected of them. They are now saying, oh, but you should have done X, Y, and Z, and they have not. They didn't know they were supposed to do X, Y, and Z, and that's because they weren't supposed. Let's just go ahead and say it. It's because they were not supposed to do X, Y, and Z. The Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality has now just changed its mind and has made it up and said, well, if you would have been able to read our mind, we wouldn't be denying your permit right now.
Well, not just that, just previous to this new permit, quote, air quotes on this permit, this new permit, they were not only complying to all the regulations, they were going above and beyond the regulations because they only needed a 12-inch clay liner. They had 18-inch clay liner.
Exactly.
Like they were going above and beyond the regulation to make sure that they would be able to get this permit.
I'm telling you, did you see the stack of that paperwork on that video just now? I mean, that's
a whole tree
insane.
right there.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, you know, the Earth Justice Sierra Club, George Soros-funded environmentalists.
They haven't gone digital.
They're not
yet.
upset about all the paperwork.
Yeah, they need to go digital if they're really that upset about it.
All right, so here, let's just game this out, okay? You guys want some proof on all of this? Joe, let's just go down the list of some of these articles. I want to read this to you. We're going to start the next article, not the Conduit article. Yeah, this one right here. So here's the actual news, and I'm just going to use the bailout screen because it's easier. The state denies hog farms revised permit request. Okay, scrolling down. There's a lingerie ad on the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Anyway. The Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality has denied C&H Hog Farm's application for a new operating permit in the Buffalo National Rivers watershed. The decision ends 643 days, just more than 21 months of waiting since C&H applied for a new permit to continue its farming operations in a slightly modified way. Now, the mainstream, it's important to understand something here. I've seen a few people point this out on social media. The mainstream media is going out of their way to protect the Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality in their decision. They are anti-business. The mainstream media, along with ADEQ, apparently, they just don't want this hog farm around. They don't. I guess they don't believe in productivity. They don't believe in hog farms. Or I mean, come on. We're trying to be productive. We're trying to feed ourselves. What is their problem? Why do they have such an aversion? Well, it's because they're getting their facts, much like Asa Hutchinson on the Sharia law issue, according to Paul Deckert, is parroting ACLU talking points. I'm telling you, these people in control of your government in Arkansas that claim to be conservative or claim to be Republican or whatever, they are more worried about criticism from the left than they are worried about criticism from you on the right. That is so abundantly clear at this point. Okay, so they've denied their permit, but let's look at the history here. Go to the next headline. We have a few more takes on this. Max Brantley, CNH Hog Farm owner, defends operation, says Buffalo River unharmed. Next story. Go to the next story here. Which one is this? Is this the same? Is this the same Arkansas Online? ADEQ denies CNH Hog Farm permit. Okay, go to the next story here. Now here, this is interesting. Okay, so that is today. Let's go back to 2014 when this all started. I have for you the director, under Mike Beebe, of the Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality. Okay, was Teresa Marks in February of 2014. Okay, so this was when it initially started. Okay, a CNH Hog Farms permit number. Dear Director Marks, we write, and this is from Earth Justice. Earth Justice is a George Soros-funded operation, okay? They get their money from George Soros, and they're injecting themselves into Arkansas, into a hog farm 6 miles from the Buffalo River. Dear Director Marks, we write to put the Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality on notice of new and relevant information concerning CNH Hog Farm, the first industrial-scale hog facility to be located in the watershed of the iconic Buffalo River and the first facility in Arkansas to be granted coverage under the NPDES Concentrated Animal Feeding Operations General Permit. See, they're upset that they got this general permit. The new information vindicates public concerns related to the environmental dangers of permitting a factory farm in the Buffalo River watershed, raises new concerns. Now, kind of, from what I can tell, from 2014 on, you didn't hear much more from Earth Justice because there was this Buffalo River Watershed Coalition that you start to see that they're the ones that are writing the letters. But go all the way to the end of this document, the signing page, Joe. Get to the end. It's kind of a lengthy document. Blah, 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 blah. They're writing the ADEQ, and now, okay, not the very end. Keep going. Sorry. And one more up. Let's get to, here we go. And at the end of the letter, so even at this juncture, public involvement can still be valuable input, blah, 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 blah. Undersigned, Monica Reimer, Earth Justice, okay? Just wanted everybody to know this letter was, the first signator is from Earth Justice, George Soros funded. This was back in 2014, okay? Go to the next piece, Joe. Here is a document where we can know that these are organizations funded directly by George Soros and his Open Society Foundation. This is on a website. It's a website trying to track the money and discover the networks. So you can see, just all this is in alphabetical order. If you go all the way down to the E's, you will see the name Earth Justice on this list. You're going to keep going. We're in the C's and the D's. There we go, right there. Earth Justice. This group seeks to place severe restrictions on how U.S. land and waterways may be used. It opposes most mining and logging initiatives, commercial fishing, businesses, and the use of motorized vehicles in undeveloped areas. So you can understand how a hog farm 6 miles from the Buffalo River is right up their alley. This is what they're trying to stop, the use of United States land and how it's being used. That is what Earth Justice is about. Moving to the next tab. This is a story from 2016. So this all started, all of their regulatory, I guess you would say, the beginning of when they were scrutinized to now. I know, we've got to go to break. February 25th of 2016, you have this headline from Emily Walkenhorst, the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Report, pig farm harm unlikely. 2 agencies issue finding of no significant impact on the river. Scrolling down. 2 federal agencies finding of no significant impact report on the environment from CNH hog farms near the Buffalo River has been signed, effectively ending a lawsuit that sought to curtail the farm's operations in the area. In a 3-page statement signed February 18th of 2016 and posted online Wednesday, the U.S. Small Business Administration and the U.S. Department of Agriculture Farm Services Agency finalized the findings of environmental assessment drafted in August. The 81-page report concluded that permanent damage to the environment is unlikely from C&H hog farms. Okay, so you have federal agencies that got involved here. You have federal agencies that got involved here because the attorney for the Buffalo River Watershed Coalition, Richard Mays, wrote to the EPA urging to get them involved here. Go to the next tab, Joe. Here is the order of dismissal, Buffalo River Watershed Alliance versus C&H Hog Farm. This is the order essentially saying that this case is dismissed. Go to the next tab, Joe. Here is Richard Mays' law firm. Richard Mays is the attorney. Now, this is new. This is from September of 2016, okay? So after you have the article saying that they didn't do anything wrong, okay, in 2016, now we have a new attempt. You have the lawsuit dismissed. We have a new attempt. And now we have a new Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality Director, Mrs. Becky Cog, or Cag. I don't know how to say her last name. You have to forgive me. The only thing I know about Becky Cog is that she is the sister-in-law of Republican Party Chairman Doyle Webb, whose wife, Doyle Webb's wife, has also been given an appointment by Asa Hutchinson. She is a judge. So you have Doyle Webb's wife and sister-in-law are being employed by state government. And Miss Becky Cog is the head of the Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality. So you have this environmentalist attorney who is writing this letter to the director of the ADEQ. And he writes, Director Cog, I would first like to express my appreciation and that of my clients, the Buffalo River Watershed Alliance. Again, the Buffalo River Watershed Alliance is an alliance. And if you go back to the very beginning of this, it was Earth Justice who was involved in the beginning. Earth Justice funded by George Soros. The decision to limit attendance on the site of the investigation into, anyway, blah, 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 blah. The next tab says this. Joe, go to the next tab. After he writes this letter in 2016, we see the acknowledgement from the director, Becky Cog, in this email where she says, thank you for your comments. Okay? So the point is everything was pretty much over. Everything was pretty much over and done with until January when Asa Hutchinson's Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality has now denied the permit to C&H Hog Farms. Go to the next tab, Joe. Here's another letter we have from September 12, 2016, where they try to get where they're actually writing to the EPA or the regional administrator, trying to get them involved. It's pretty interesting what they say. Listen to this. I'm writing on behalf of the Buffalo River Coalition, which is comprised of 3 environmental organizations dedicated to protecting the Buffalo National River, requests your intervention and oversight of an investigation currently scheduled for September 19, 2016 by the Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality at the C&H Hog Farm near Mount Judea, Newton County, Arkansas, to determine if waste is leaking from waste storage lagoons into groundwater. C&H Hog Farm received a general permit to conduct a large confined animal feeding operation, but they go on to say, scroll down a little bit, that they do not believe that ADEQ essentially can handle this by themselves, that they need federal oversight. Okay, go to the next tab, Joe. We're running out of time here. We got to go. Anyway, we got letter after letter after letter. The bottom line is this. Things were done. And by the way, Earth Justice supported the government when it came to that whole Bundy Ranch thing. Remember that, Clive and Bundy? They were totally on the side of the against, because Earth Justice is about getting to use, they want to decide how you should use your land. Okay, anyway. We're running out of time, haven't been able to get to all of this. But here's the question. Why did Asa Hutchinson's ADEQ deny their permit? What happened behind the scenes? Why did their permit get denied when they had already been put through the regulatory ringer all the way back in 2014? They had the agencies come out and test the soil samples. Everything comes back clear. What is going on here? We have to take a break. Back in a minute.
If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're wrapping up this first hour here this morning. Doug Thompson reporting out of Bentonville that Gan Nunnally of Bentonville plans to run for the District 93 seat in the State House of Representatives in the Republican primary. He confirmed this Wednesday. Now, currently, that seat is held by Republican State Representative Jim Dotson of Bentonville. Dotson said he will announce his reelection bid soon. No Democrat has yet to announce. So that's very interesting to me to see. We have another primary. Somebody wants to primary Jim Dotson. And then, of course, in other news up in Rogers, a Democrat named Christy Craig has confirmed her bid to the State House seat held by Republican State Representative Grant Hodges. So we have a Democrat challenging Grant Hodges. And let me tell you something. Grant Hodges is one of the good guys in the House. We've got one more hour coming your way next.
The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
Constitution with what they're trying to do, and yet Asa starts his statement by saying, "I've practiced law for many years in Arkansas, and we don't have Sharia law here." So that's his excuse. Is he's been a lawyer in Arkansas a long time, Colonel Deckert. So we don't need this, and that comes to your point of leadership. Continue, please.
All right, so, again, there's truth in what he says. I believe him. I believe he has practiced law for a long time in Arkansas. And I believe that you do not have Sharia law in Arkansas right now. I believe both of those statements. Now, there's a military principle. You can currently find it in a book by the same name. The theory is called left of bang. Bang is any incident. I'm talking to you from New Orleans. It could be a hurricane, could be an incident. Up where y'all are, you've got New Madrid Fault, an earthquake could be an incident.
Mm-hmm.
Out to the west, it could be a wildfire, could be the incident. Or at Little Rock Airport, it could be a terrorist incident. Whatever the thing is, that's bang. Right of bang is how quickly we respond once there is an incident. Something happens, we respond. That's to the right of it. Left of bang is what we do before bang. Now, There's not a lot I can do pre-earthquake except prepare. There's not a lot I can do pre-hurricane except prepare. For some other man-made things, I can prevent. And there's where the difference comes in. And that's where leadership comes in. What have we seen? It hasn't happened here yet, but it's happening. What have we seen? How do I prepare in order to prevent? And that's what this sort of legislation does. Now, I'm going to give you my example because I kind of like this one. So let's use a fire. What we're talking about is we have seen that there have been fires in buildings. So the legislature, who expresses the will of the people and makes the laws, and sometimes elected officials need to be reminded of that, the legislature who expresses the will of the people and makes the laws says things like, we know there's fires that happen. It hasn't happened in our building yet, but we're going to come up with a rule that says you need to have sprinklers. You need to have sprinklers above the second floor so that if there is a fire, we don't lose the people in the building.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? The people who are focusing on, well, we've never had a fire. Okay? You're correct. The building is standing. It has never caught fire. So what's your solution? Let's spend money on bigger engines in the fire truck so they get there faster after the building catches fire. That's your idea of leadership? You want to come up with a better way to respond after it happens, but you don't want to do a doggone thing until it happens. You know, it's the sort of thing where I feel sorry for these timid souls who refuse to lead because should anything happen, they will never have a nice sleep again if they have any kind of a functioning mind or connected soul, because they know they will have missed the opportunity to do what they were elected to do. So God bless the legislature in the state of Arkansas because they did lead. They did say, this is a step to make sure that we prevent mothers from having their children taken away from them, because some place other than here came up with a ruling, and we had people that didn't have the clear express will of the legislature to stand on firmly and act. That's all judges do.
Yeah.
Judges simply say, yes, this is in compliance, no, this isn't. Judges don't rule from the bench. Some of them need to be reminded of that, too.
Yeah, they do, for sure. Wow. I mean, that's just really really powerful stuff, and I love that concept, left of bang, right of bang, and it really is, one is what a leader does, and the other is what a leader does not do. And I'm really glad, Colonel Paul Deckert, that you recognize what the Arkansas General Assembly did, because they did stand up to a lot of pressure. On our Facebook feed over at facebook.com/Conduit News, State Representative Brant Smith is watching this interview, and he just said repeatedly, I was told I'm looking for a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. And yet, Brant stood up, the legislature stood up, and, the governor didn't want to veto it because there would have been a lot of backlash, so instead he just refuses to sign it. And luckily in Arkansas, if you refuse to sign long enough, it just becomes law without the governor's signature. And so here we have. But now he's taking criticism for that in a primary, and he's coming out and saying,
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, folks, welcome back. It is hour number 2. Good morning to everyone out there. My name is Paul Harrell, And this is Conduit News Radio. It is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We are building a liberty machine. We want you to be a part of that. One of the ways you can do that, call us, text us, 870-275-9799, or you may sound off on Facebook Live. That's facebook.com/Conduit News, where we're broadcasting live, and we appreciate the audience. We're also on YouTube, and you can go to conduitnews.com and all the other ways to get the podcast and video archives and things like that. Okay. At the beginning of last hour, we recapped Asa Hutchinson's ACLU talking points when it comes to why he didn't sign the anti-Sharia law bill. We did that by referencing Colonel Paul Deckert, who was on the show, I guess, yesterday. We also got into this article about John Brummett criticizing Jan Morgan. No surprise there. And in criticizing Jan Morgan and talking about how Jan Morgan is criticizing Asa because of the Sharia law thing, we found a very interesting gem. Because, you see, Jan Morgan accused the governor of being a Democrat. And John Brummett wrote this. She said the other night at a Jonesboro area Tea Party event that Asa is a Democrat without meaning it as a compliment. That's because he tries to make government work and, in fact, has made it work. Now, what I said last hour, I'm just going to reiterate briefly, and that is, do the rank-and-file Republicans remember a time when John Brummett used to actually be critical of them instead of praising them? Why is now John Brummett all of a sudden defending and promoting Asa Hutchinson with every turn? It's because he agrees with who he is. He probably thinks he's the best we can do for Democrats at this time when Republicans are so powerful. He's implementing our policies or protecting our old policies. And he believes that government should work, just like a Democrat believes in government. And, in fact, he has made it work, just like Democrats, quote, make government work. It is, for Jan Morgan's candidacy, articles like this might as well be gift-wrapped. I mean, this is gold. But my question to the Little Rock Marble Palace elite is, do any of you see this? And do you just think... Do you lie to yourself and think that John Brummett is somehow a conservative and on your side? Do you lie to yourself and say, well, he's just an opportunist that wants to remain relevant now that Republicans are in control, so he's just kissing up to us? Or is he a principled leftist that wants, and when I say principled leftist, or is he a leftist that wants his policy goals implemented and wants to defend them at all costs? And of course he is. That's what he is. John Brummett hasn't changed, just like I haven't changed, or conservative, limited government conservatives haven't changed. It's you Republicans in positions of power in the establishment. You're the ones that have changed, not us. You want to normalize. You guys are working overtime to try to normalize what the government growth in the Republican Party. No, thank you. What you guys are doing would not fly in Tennessee or Texas at the state level. It wouldn't. You realize several years ago, think about this. I want you to game this out with me. Do you realize several years ago, the governor of Tennessee, Bill Haslam, wanted to expand Medicaid? Arkansas had done it, and he got real jealous. So the governor of Tennessee called a special session to expand Medicaid. His proposal didn't even make it out of the committee. Special session was over before it had begun because the Republicans on the committee said, not a chance. Not a chance. Now, can you fathom a Republican governor in Arkansas? Can you fathom Asa calling a special session and his plan dying in the House committee and the special session just being over? Can you fathom that? There's some Republicans listening to this right now, at the Marble Palace, and they're like, oh, my gosh, that's tragic. You mean Bill Haslam, a Republican, called his Republican legislature together for a special session to pass Medicaid expansion a few years ago, and they shut him down in the committee? They said, no, we're the legislature, you're the governor, and we're not just going to do your bidding? Can you imagine if that happened in Arkansas? See, I can't, not with Asa, because there's such a stranglehold on everybody. They're not allowed to be free thinkers, which is really the complete antithesis of what the Republican Party is supposed to stand for. Open debate, free exchange of ideas. That actually happened. Can you believe that? Go look it up. Called a special session, gets shot down. Now, it's important that you guys realize in the Republican Party leadership, well, the leadership can't stand this program. They can't stand true conservatives. They can't stand the base. They can't stand it. Sorry, we're fixing our volume for our stream. We had to bump it down and we forgot to turn it back up. So if you guys are having trouble hearing me, you should be better now. But to the rank and file who kind of just follow, you guys just receive your talking points, and I'm sorry to tell you that. I don't mean to be condescending, but you guys honestly are pretty condescending sometimes once you receive the talking points from the leadership. If you hear anything other than that, you get really upset and condescending, and so I'm just saying, those of you who are not actually making the decisions, but you are just kind of following along, I just want you to understand something. You guys are the ones that have changed, not your base. You have changed. Okay? John Brumman hasn't changed. He's still supporting liberalism and progressivism, yet he's writing articles praising Asa Hutchinson. And here's he can't even help it. Even when he writes an article on Clark Tucker. Joe, next piece. John Brummett, this was February 6th, 2 days ago. A reason to hope. A reason to hope. It sounds like a title that's like you're pitching like Barack Obama's like time at Hawaii High School, like a movie. Like you're pitching it to some Hollywood studio. I'll call it A Reason to Hope. It's a reason to hope. Yeah. Yeah. Joe, that's good. Don't say something like that. He just said a reason. It's actually a futuristic tale about Obama becoming the president of the United Nations. Then he could really bash America, just unapologetic, like openly. But anyway, a reason to hope. All right, so John Brummett's piece. He's writing about Clark Tucker, State Representative Clark Tucker. He's a Democrat. He's from Little Rock. He has now said he's running for Congress. That he says he can do a better job than Congressman French Hill, who's the second congressional representative there, who's a Republican. So this is the hope. A reason to hope. Reason to hope is John Brummett saying, in Donald Trump's America, we have one man in one district, Clark Tucker, who's willing to stand up and do the right thing and challenge what's going on in this country.
The one seat to rule them all.
Yes, exactly. This is the hope, is you have flippable districts all across the country, and Arkansas is one of them, and Clark Tucker is the man.
Arkansas was once blue, and we're going back.
Yeah. This seat is all the Democrats need to cover all the lands in the second darkness.
What you didn't know is that the upholstery is removable. It's red still, or blue still. It was once red.
Okay. So John Brummett's writing this piece, A Reason to Hope, and he says Tucker a savvy young Democrats. People like Tucker, savvy young Democrats who are standout Harvard graduates and accomplished young lawyers from families of strong community heritage and longtime civic leadership. Gosh, what the?
This limits the field so much. This is a very select group of people.
Oh, man. Gosh, that is so elitist. I mean, that's like I was like, I'm crying here. It's like that's ridiculous. There's a lot in that onion. By people like Tucker, I mean savvy young Democrats who are standout Harvard graduates and accomplished young lawyers. So you're a Harvard graduate and you're an attorney, and you're from families from strong community heritage and long-time civic leadership. Hey, listen, I've been around Clark Tucker, or at least I've watched him operate at the Marble Palace. There's no question he's a slick guy. I mean, he is a slick Democrat. So much so that Asa Hutchinson trusts him. And I'm going to, and that's not, don't take my word for it, okay? I'm on the far right. Take John Brummett's word for it. He's on the far left, and he even agrees with this. This is what he writes about. That's my point. He can't even write a simple piece talking about how Clark Tucker is, need somebody to stand up against Trump. He can't even do that without really kind of throwing Asa under the bus if you're looking at it from a conservative perspective. John Brummett is praising what Asa did because John Brummett got what he wants. So he says the young man is veritably soaked in Little Rock. John Brummett writes, I'm also thinking of the style and substance, talking about Clark Tucker, of a badly outnumbered Democratic state representative who, because he knew Medicaid expansion was the right and important thing to do, helped a Republican governor on a valiant scheme in 2016. It was the valiant scheme of 2016, I tell you. It was valiant. I know. It's like, let's make that the next, Irish folk song so we can remind our children what Clark Tucker and Asa Hutchinson did. It's like, remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder treason and plot. It was a valiant scheme of 2016, Clark Tucker. Anyway, so I couldn't finish it. I couldn't figure out how to get Asa Hutchinson to rhyme with that. All right, so the plan. What was the plan? What is the valiant scheme that John Brummett is referring to? What is that? The plan, quote, was to finesse a couple of conservative votes by agreeing to the inclusion of special language in the appropriation bill for all human services spending that would end Medicaid expansion. The governor would then excise that special language by his line-item veto, permitting the program to continue under the funding authority of the rest of the bill. Now, many people thought, let me stop. Many people still think that it was unconstitutional to do that, which is why they later went back when they had a special session and they redid the whole program with a simple majority vote. They got around the Constitution. Asa doesn't like our 75% threshold requirement that we have to spend money, so he got around that provision by doing this. And he'll tell you, no, I had the votes. It was all a scheme, though. And even John Brummett says it was a scheme. But he calls it a valiant scheme, a courageous scheme. What does valiant mean again, Joe? The actual definition is valiant, courageous, determined, something like that. The valiant scheme of 2016. Possessing or showing courage or determination. Okay. So essentially, and we knew this at the time, the idea to do all of this was Clark Tucker's. Clark Tucker, who's running now against French Hill, it was his idea to do this. And Asa said yes. Asa goes along with the Democrat idea to get the and why do you think the Democrat senators that went along and voted to end Medicaid expansion, trusting a Republican governor that he was going to undo it just so that they could get around the constitutional requirement, is, you had Clark Tucker basically convincing them, hey, you can trust not just Asa, but you can trust me because this was my idea. This is Asa. Listen, this is John Brummett. Quote, when Governor Hutchinson appealed to the small House Democratic caucus to support him on the scheme, pointing out that it was the only way to get Medicaid expansion done, Tucker said he might be able to come to agreement. But he asked if the governor would let him try to improve the special language to be vetoed to better guard against a lawsuit that might jeopardize Medicaid expansion. Okay, so John remembers it a little differently. He's saying it wasn't really his idea, but Clark Tucker came up with the amendment that made sure it was more legal. Hutchinson said, sure, Tucker's changes were incorporated into the measure. When the governor announced victory, he thanked Clark Tucker for his sound legal help. That is true. I remember that. So, Clark Tucker is the guy, apparently, according to John Brummett. He's the guy that we need in this era of Trump to challenge Republicans in urban districts that could be flipped from red to blue. And he's also the guy that helped a supposedly Republican governor keep Obama's signature domestic achievement alive and well in Arkansas. Something does not add up. Either Clark Tucker, is really a Republican, along with John Brummett, or Asa is a Democrat. You be the judge. You're listening to Conduit News Radio. I'm Paul Harrell. Good morning to everybody out there. Back in just a moment.
This is ASA News, The Parrot. With breaking news from the Capitol in Little Rock. I'm Bob Maloney. There are reports circling around from politicians who are in the know, and the same phrase keeps being used. That phrase is new revenue generation. Let's go to our reporter on the ground from the Capitol, Haley Hogwash. Haley?
Thanks, Bob. Yes, it seems the more politicians I talk to, the more I hear the phrase new revenue generation. We're trying to figure out exactly what that means, but you can rest assured it will be good for the people of Arkansas.
Haley, it certainly sounds like something good. I like how the phrase uses the word generation. That makes me think this has got to be doing something positive for our children in the future. Haley?
Yes, Bob, some new developments. I've just been speaking to some people who are here and are not politicians, and they tell me the phrase new revenue generation is actually code for a new tax.
Oh, my. Well, if this is true, Haley, that would add to a growing list of new taxes that have barely made any headlines at all, so it's best not to discuss them here on ASA News, The Parrot.
Yes, Bob, I know it's sure to make government officials angry that their phrasing of the new revenue generation has been changed by the people and called a tax increase.
I would expect an announcement from Mother Government soon to set the record straight. What is the new tax? Revenue generation, Haley?
Well, this new tax, a new revenue generation would add to a growing list. First, there was a revenue generation on movies, books, and songs that people download using the internet. And next, there was the tax increase. I'm sorry, Bob, the new revenue generation on all purchases made using the internet. And now I'm told this new revenue generation is a tax on the people's patience.
I realize the people don't like it, Haley, but specifically, what is the new tax? Revenue generation.
No, Bob, I'm telling you, according to the activists here at the Capitol who have gathered and are listening to some radio broadcast, the revenue generation is literally taxing the patience of the people of Arkansas. I'm told the less patience you have with the government,
the government better not tax our patience,
the more they will tax your patience and the more money you will owe at a later date. I'm also told the collection method on taxing your patience will be decided in a newly formed multicolored ribbon task force.
How taxing.
PHP Parody.
exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, folks, welcome back. Thanks so much for being with us. So Jan Morgan was in Fort Smith last night. This headline by Crystal Sherrill over at 5 News Online. Republican candidate for governor hosts meet and greet. And Jan Morgan, Republican candidate for Arkansas governor, stopped at Fort Smith to meet the residents and speak about her campaign. It's reported about 75 people showed up. It looked like in the room, the photos that I saw, the room was it was very well attended for the room that it was. Let's see here. What we were listening for in addition to the issues was, are you satisfied with your government? Do you want something different? Overwhelmingly, the message was, we're not happy, Jan Morgan explained. Anyway, it's really good stuff. She's going all around. And do we have let's get to the upcoming events. So she was in Fort Smith last night, and that was the 7th. Tonight is the 8th, so she is in Yellville, Marion County Courthouse. If you want to see Jan Morgan, she's in Yellville at 7 p.m. tonight, the Marion County Courthouse. That's 300 East Old Main Street. Again, that's 300 East Old Main Street. And then on Saturday, she'll be in Mount Ida, the 2nd Annual Reed Matthews Memorial Hunt, Montgomery County Fairgrounds at 11:30 a.m. Monday, February 12th, you can go meet her and Warren at the Meet and Greet Baker's Western Way. That's 205 East Cedar Street. Monday the 12th, so this coming Monday, she'll be in Monticello. The Southeast Arkansas Tea Party, that's 181 U.S. Highway 425 South. On Tuesday, February 13th, she'll be in Nashville, the Howard County Republican Committee, that's 1765 South 4th Street. On Thursday, February 14th, so a week from today, Thursday, February 15th, a week from today, she'll be in Rogers at Copeland's Don Overstreet. That's is that an 8 or a 6? That's 463 North 46th Street. Thursday, February 22nd, she'll be in Whitehall, the Jefferson County Republican Committee. Okay, so now I can't see anything. Whitehall, Jefferson County Republican Committee, 7401 Dollarway Road, Suite 114. And Saturday, February 24th, she'll be in Fordyce, the Jeremy Sullivan Feral Hog Roundup. That's the Old Armory, 101 South Main Street. And Monday, February 26th, she'll be in Ozark at the County Republican Committee First Presbyterian Church, 204 North 4th Street in Ozark. So she's got a pretty busy schedule, making the rounds, meeting as many folks as she can, getting her message out. And let me tell you something about Jan's message. If you see her in person, if you actually see her and you listen to her, and this is why they tried to stop her from speaking at so many county committee meetings, because they know if you see her and you listen to her and you listen to the content, her chances of winning just keep going up. People are going to vote for her because on substance she's conservative, and she knows the issues that are resonating with the folks. Back in just a moment. The law wasn't necessary, and I think that you have pretty well refuted that. I mean, I was already convinced, but I think a lot of people out there are convinced as well, sir.
Well, first of all, I cannot say enough good about Representative Brant Smith. That is a quality individual, and I know that man stood against near-term political pressure, but he has done work for his church all over the world. He is just a quality individual. He is a very intelligent man. He is a former college professor, and a good one, a real one, not some freak like we have on a lot of campuses out there these days.
Yeah,
just cannot say enough good about him. And what I'm referring to, and I want to be perfectly clear, that I'm simply stating what the law does and the actions that I've seen. Like I said before, I don't have a cross against Governor Hutchinson per se. I have a cross against some of the actions that people have taken and the things they have said.
Yes.
And if they want to fall into those given buckets, that's on them.
Yeah.
But when I've seen people act a certain way, at some point in time, I have to be a sapient being and draw a conclusion. So, what we've seen and the actions that were taken by the men and women of the legislature, both the House and the Senate in Arkansas, were stellar. And they vigorously debated, and they pointed out where they thought there were issues, and there were amendments that went back and forth so that this would be in pure, conforming with the laws of the state of Arkansas and the will of their representatives.
And real quick, 'cause we're out of time. We're out of time. But Colonel Paul Decker, just tell us how many other states have passed this a version of this law that you're intricately involved in all this across the country.
There's 10 that have passed it. In addition to Arkansas, there are another, I think, 5 that are somewhere in the process as we speak. So this isn't like some bizarre fringe thing. The first ones that passed it, the earliest ones that passed it, Tennessee, Louisiana, were in the beginning of 2003-ish.
Wow.
So these have been out there for a long time. And when people say things like, well, that's not constitutionally valid. Oh, really? Hello?
The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, here we go, folks. Let's see here. What we have? We have Paul on our Facebook feed. It's not me. I believe this Paul is Mr. Paul Love down in White County. Jan Morgan supports the Republican Party platform unequivocally. She'll make government work for the people by getting freeloaders off the taxpayers' backs. Yeah, and listen to this here. See, I had another one, Medicaid expansion. I was just reading a lot of the stuff Paul was saying here. Okay, so Paul says this. What can we do, Paul? Jan Morgan was merely mentioned in our local Republican meeting, and the cone of silence descended on the meeting. I, for one, am tired of being encouraged to keep the course. We can't afford big government. Yeah, what do we do? Well, I would encourage you to speak out congenially to the level of annoying everyone around you. Can you congenially annoy people? That's what I would do with these Republican committees. Some of these Republican committees are perfectly willing to have debate. They're perfectly willing to, be Republicans. Let's talk about the ideas. If you're charged with being a liberal, that's a serious charge. Let's hear the evidence, and let's let people make up their own minds. I think that's totally reasonable. Then there are other committees that are worshiping, and I use that word intentionally because I mean it for what it is. They are worshiping the power of the party that has been bestowed on Asa Hutchinson, and they are being whipped into line. And many of them are afraid. Now, some of them are out for their own personal. Look, if Asa Hutchinson loses, there are people around him that lose power and influence. There are people around him that lose power and influence. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to get that relationship, especially in a Republican that is supposedly supposed to be for government transparency and not supposed to be for the good old boy system. It's a lot of work for this interest or that interest to cozy up. Well, maybe not a lot to Asa, but you know what I mean. Like, it's these people. If Asa loses, they don't want to have to start over again. And at this point, as dismissive as some of these committees have been, loyalty to the governor, and they've been dismissive of Jan Morgan, they certainly don't want Jan Morgan to win. Because, you see, in their world, they're like, uh-oh. Well, Asa is vindictive, so I guess the other side, if they win, they're going to be just as vindictive. I don't think that's what our side represents. I don't think true conservatives want to be vindictive. They just want to allow the process to work free of coercion and bullying tactics and things like that. They just let the legislators legislate, right? They actually, I mean, I think a lot of them really do believe somewhat in limited government. They'd be doing a lot more things that are, I think, are better for the people, just representing their districts, if it wasn't for the nephews and other forces, the speaker and everything else, trying to control what actually gets to the governor's desk so he doesn't have to be put in a difficult situation. I don't think any of us really thought when we voted for Asa the first time over Mike Ross, I don't think any of us really thought what we were voting for was to disenfranchise ourselves from our elected representatives. You know what I mean? Like, nobody voted for Asa thinking, I can't wait to vote for Asa. He's going to control what legislators can vote on by controlling the legislation and the process. And he's going to have such a fence. He's going to have such a wall around what gets to his desk, and he's only going to give keys to certain people that he approves of to actually get that legislation to his desk. Nobody, when they voted for Asa Hutchinson, thought that was the kind of governor he was going to be. Well, I mean, maybe some people did. I mean, he was in D.C. for a while. He was at Homeland Security under George W. Bush. That was described to me the other day. Somebody was like, I was telling somebody out of state, Asa Hutchinson, like, wasn't he in Homeland Security? Wasn't his time there just unrememberable? I'm like, yeah, pretty much. I mean, it was. I thought that was so funny. Some outside guy barely knows anything about Asa, and he said, but wasn't his time in Homeland Security just unrememberable? Well, yeah, I guess so. Joe, yes, sir. What's going on?
Asa also controls everything to the point when people run for any kind of elected office in Arkansas right now, they're one of three types of people. They're either Democrats, they're Asa's whipping boys, or they're complete opposition to Asa. And the only reason they're running is to try to confront, but to just stand in between Asa and his big government policies.
Yeah, Asa had a really huge opportunity when he came in because there was a big divide in the Republican Party when he came in, and it was over Medicaid expansion. And instead of ending the program and leaning us out and healing the division by doing the principled conservative thing, he's only made it so much worse. Asa has been a disaster for the Republican Party of Arkansas. And he's been, well, let me say this, maybe not for filing fees and the Republican Party as a whole, but for conservatism, Asa has been a nightmare. He's been an absolute nightmare. And if you want to know what will enable Democrats to get control back in this state, it will be when his big government policies fail. When Asa's big government policies fail, do you know who's going to get the blame for it? Conservatives.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to say that Asa Hutchinson is a moderate Republican then. They're going to tell you that Asa Hutchinson is a conservative, and we tried it the conservatives' way, we need to go to the liberals' way, when in reality, limited government ideas were never tried at all. Not ever, not once. And that's why Barack Obama sailed into the White House, because George W. Bush was a big government progressive Republican. He was a big government progressive Republican, but when the economy failed, guess what? Oh, we tried it the conservative way. You didn't try it at all the conservative way. You lowered our taxes a little bit, but that's it. You didn't actually until Obama, George W. Bush grew government more than any other president before him. So That's what we're dealing with here. All these Republicans that are like, if we keep criticizing each other, if we keep criticizing each other and we keep, having these primaries, Democrats are going to get back control. No. If you keep under the Republican mantle with a mainstream media that's liberal, once your big government policies collapse on themselves, like, I don't know, not having a budget crisis, they're going to blame conservatives. They're going to claim Asa is a conservative in the media and that now we've got to go back to the left. When in reality, they never even tried fiscal responsibility. They never even tried real tax reform. And that's the danger. And you've got to believe me on this because you can see this play out throughout history. The media will tie these lukewarm, progressive Republicans that are actually the same ideas. So in reality, what ends up happening is you double down on the same failed ideas. See, because Asa's ideas are the same as the liberal progressives' ideas, but the media will then tie the collapse or they'll tie whatever the disaster is to, quote, conservatives. So it's like, okay, well, we got to vote for change. The change are the Democrats, but the Democrats come in and they just double down on what the last guy was doing.
That's why Asa's his only option for half of the policies that he runs is just to throw more money at it. He doubles down on it. Medicaid expansion, throw more money at it.
Yeah, okay, yeah, speaking of more money, go to this article over here. This is Asa's Politics of Candy and Soft Drinks. I thought this was fascinating. Over several years, former Governor Mike Beebe worked to reduce Arkansas' sales tax on groceries. He wasn't able to eliminate the tax completely, but succeeded in removing nearly all of the state tax on groceries. In 2017, Governor Asa Hutchinson got the full sales tax put back on candy and soda drinks. Note, in addition to the sales tax on soft drinks, Arkansas also collects a special soft drink tax. Although Governor Hutchinson treated candy and soft drinks as different from groceries to get more tax money, he sat on his hands and failed to support a bill to treat candy and soft drinks different from groceries concerning what items could be purchased using food stamps. Okay. Now, it's important that they're, grocery store owners and everything, they didn't support this bill, but this is an interesting concept. Just hear me out. House Bill 1030 of 2017 by Representative Mary Bentley would have excluded candy and soda from the items eligible to purchase with food stamps. Note, the bill originally applied to all junk food. It was later amended because people were really freaking out. The food stamp program was created to provide nutritional items to low-income families. Bentley saw candy and soda as not being nutritional and thought they should not be included in a nutritional program. I mean, the concept is, hey, food stamps, get a bag of beans, a bag of rice. You're not going to starve, but maybe candy and soda is not the best thing. That's the goal. I never agreed with that, with doing it from the health aspect of it. Like, it's not healthy because it's like, I don't know. I don't like the government getting involved and telling us what's healthy and what's not, because I think that can seep into other aspects. But I understand. Like, I understand. Yeah, you don't want people using food stamps to buy filet mignon. I mean, I think a lot of people have a problem with that. That's my whole thing. Is it's like, this is to me. I want to forget the health aspect. Let's talk about luxury. Sugar is a luxury. Okay, soda is a special treat. Okay, if we're talking about we don't want you to starve, then we wouldn't give you something that is a treat. We would give you something substantial like rice, beans, or government cheese.
Yeah, if someone's being put on food stamps, they don't have the money to afford a luxury. I think that's kind of what they're trying to cut out here. I think the wording that they use is just wrong.
Well, what this was an attempt, and it failed. Okay, it couldn't get out or whatever. So the food stamp program was created to provide blah, blah, blah. Bentley saw candy and soda as not being nutritional items and thought they should not be included in the nutritional program. Had Bentley's bill passed, food stamp recipients would have still received just as much food stamps. The recipients just would not have been able to use the food stamps to purchase candy and sodas. The House of Representatives passed Bentley's bill and sent it to the Senate, but in the Senate, it got bottled up in the Senate Public Health Committee, where 6 of the 8 members are Republican, and the bill died in committee. Governor Hutchinson's move to raise the tax on candy and soda has inspired the Tax Reform and Relief Legislative Task Force to consider the possibility of raising the tax on all groceries. So let us hear your thoughts. Where do you stand on it? Now, here's the interesting part. This is a conclusion that's not really drawn. Why do you think Asa didn't support Why do you think Asa didn't support Mary Bentley's bill to say you can't buy candy and soda with food stamps? It's pretty simple. Because he raised the tax on candy and soda. Hang on a second. But you still, but at food stamps, you're still going to get the tax added. It's still going to come off of your EBT card. He raises the tax on candy and soda to supposedly pay for the veterans. We know that was a big scam. But that's why he doesn't support Mary Bentley's bill, because if he had, now there's going to be less people buying candy and soda, which means less money going to the government. Do you see the shell game that they play? I'm telling you, man. This is great. This is great stuff. All right, Michael Wickline. 3 vie for nomination in the state Senate race. Early voting near in special primary. You don't have this. I just wanted to look at some of this, some of the quotes here. We'll be talking with Bob Bailey here in just a little bit. But you've got Breann Davis, Bob Bailey, Luke Heffley. February 13th, early voting started a couple of days ago in this special election where you have establishment versus non-establishment very clearly defined. Okay. This is what Bob Bailey said about himself. What's up? Okay, yeah. This is what Bob Bailey says about himself. If you love the Constitution and are tired of the same old status quo that is running this country into the ground, then vote for me. If you love socialism, the one world government, or Republicans that vote like Democrats, then you want to vote for someone else, Bailey said. That is very honest and succinct, to the point. Yeah, now, Breann Davis, who they say she's a senior accounts executive with SAS Institute at Cary, North Carolina-based Global Analytics. She's been on the Russellville School Board. She said people should vote for her because she is intertwined with the community, and her husband has worked in youth sports. Quote, the challenges that face the state are challenges that we fight in our communities. I want to bring this energy, passion, and experience to the state legislature. Interesting. Then Luke Heffley, 47, a special projects coordinator for Arkansas Tech University. Quote, I truly believe that my background, life experiences, and deep roots in the district has given me the experience to take on this humbling responsibility. He goes on, I've been all over the district letting people know that I will uphold the U.S. Constitution, traditional values, gun rights, and very pro-life. I believe in more local control and less government intervention. Medicaid expansion. The 3 Republican candidates, according to Wickline, are split over the state's version of Medicaid expansion that provides private health insurance to low-income Arkansans. Bailey said he opposes the program, with Davis and Heffley signaled their conditional support for the program. Now, folks, that's all I would need to know if I were a voter. Any objective view of this program, you know it has been a lie, a scam, and it has done nothing but grow. And they're only now shrinking the rolls because Asa is up for re-election. They're only now shrinking the rolls because Asa is up for re-election. And if you really look at the math, you actually got to ask yourself, I don't see how you can come to any other conclusion other than Asa Hutchinson is very irresponsible. Think about that. He is only just now removing all of these people. He's claiming 117,000 people or something like that are now off of Medicaid, okay? But for 36 months, we've done nothing to remove these people. Now, you think about that kind of money. What's 36 months times $500 a month times 177,000 people? Okay? What's 2% of that, which is the premium tax we get to tax the insurance companies to where the state, quote, makes money off of that? Okay? So Asa didn't mind wasting federal taxpayers $2 billion for 36 months. He only cares about it now that he's running for re-election. And that's what you need to know. And anybody who's going to continue to support him in doing this and putting out this deception is, I'm sorry, you're either in with the status quo or you're really just not able to look at this thing and see it for what it is. And we got to take a break. We're going to be right back here in a moment with Mr. Bob Bailey, Republican candidate in this race. Don't go anywhere. Back in a moment.
Protecting your business means protecting your data. But is your business really prepared to handle the growing threat of things like cybercriminals and ransomware? At iTex, they're committed to deploying the best security solutions to protect your business and your bottom line. Security threats are constantly evolving. So are security needs. Be proactive now and equip your business with the best cybersecurity available with iTex. Call them today for a free consultation at 870-336-9778. That's 870-336-9778 or itexusa.com. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
It's a PHP parody.
Hey, man, you got any of that marble rock?
Yeah, I've got the hookup.
Thanks. I need a fix real bad. I'm itching to grow some government.
How much you need?
I'm gonna need a taxpayer's dime bag.
No problem, sir. 1 taxpayer dime of marble rock. Enjoy.
Thanks, man. They don't call it Little Rock for nothing. Am I right?
Did you know your state representative or state senator may be addicted to growing government? The drug is called marble rock, and too much of it will cause marble fever. Watch for the war.
And we see the Lord's grace in the moms and dads who work 2 and 3 jobs to give their children the chance for a better and much more prosperous.
This is Donald Trump.
Life.
This is the National Prayer Breakfast going on right now.
The Bible tells us, for we are God's handiwork, created in Jesus Christ to do good works. America's heroes rise to this calling. In their selfless deeds, they reveal the beauty and goodness.
Okay, we're gonna. This is going on right now. You can get this. This is President Donald Trump. Go ahead and get that out of there, Joe. President Donald Trump at the National Prayer Breakfast mentioning Jesus Christ's name. When is the? I can't remember the last time that a president has been so just matter of fact about the Christian the Christian consensus that we have, I think, over flyover country, but certainly it doesn't reflect in our institutions the way it used to. Hey, from the campaign trail, Senate District 16 special election going on. We've got Bob Bailey back with us. Bob, how's it going, sir?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. Donald Trump's delivering his remarks right now at the National Prayer Breakfast, and I can't wait to get off here, honestly, and listen to the rest of them. So how are things going on the campaign trail?
I think they're going pretty good. They apparently had another 300 or so people voting yesterday, and we had lots of people come by the booth and say, hey, man, I just want to know I voted for you. People I don't even know.
Really?
And they were young people, middle-aged people, older people, had several veterans come by. Just really had a good time yesterday talking to people and visiting with them.
That's really good. That's got to be very encouraging, positive, especially if you didn't know who they were. They must be. Yeah. I've noticed you got a Facebook video going around with an ad on it. It's really well done.
Yeah, we had some local people here do that for us, and seems to be pretty well received.
Mm-hmm. You're getting some criticism from the likes of the Arkansas Times, one of the far left-leaning blogs here in the state. That's got to make you feel good.
Well, actually, I had a guy call me up. He wanted to come up here and interview me, and I basically told him, no, that's not going to happen. I mean, you're wanting to interview me on Facebook posts. His words were, an anonymous person sent us some Facebook pictures that are we have questions about. And, them things are 6 years old. I told him, if that's all you got, I'm kind of honored that somebody's spending that much time on it.
Yeah. Well, Bob, I mean, you're against Obamacare. Arkansas Works. It's a $2 billion a year program. So, I mean, if you could potentially at some point sway the decision and end up canceling that program in the Senate, I mean, a lot of people's wallets are going to get thinner because there's going to be less taxpayer money subsidizing what they want to do in their lifestyles.
I have to disagree with you on one thing. You're calling it a program. I'm calling it a $2 billion scam.
Well, you can disagree with me all day, because I like that. I agree with you. Let me say this: you're exactly right. That is more succinct than the way I was putting it.
Man, I'll tell you what. The more information I find out about these various items, I think that swamp down there is actually a little deeper than I originally thought.
Yeah, it seems like we're the fish are much larger. I mean, when you just look at something like Cindy Gillespie, the head of DHS, she was with Mitt Romney when he came up with this whole thing that Obamacare was based on. She actually used to work before she came to Arkansas. Worked for an international lobbyist firm called Denton's, and they got locations all over the world. So she's making this outrageous salary. Okay, she replaced John Seelig. And it's like, and I've talked to legislators that say she's really nice, and I'm sure she is nice. But you got to just think, okay, are you here working for the people of Arkansas, or are you here on assignment from this law firm, international law firm called Denton's? Are you trying to really kind of solidify a dependency on government to provide us our health care? And that's kind of where I fall on all of this. Bob Bailey, we're almost out of time. I'll give you the last word, sir.
Things are looking up, getting a lot of good comments. Got some busy days ahead. We're going to do a lot of meet and greets and meetings with various individuals, and we're going to spend a lot of time out there talking to people that are coming and going and voting, and I'm loving every minute of it.
When do the polls close every day during early voting?
I believe it's 4 o'clock.
Okay. All right, so Senate Special Election District 16. This is Bob Bailey here with us. Bob, we appreciate it, sir. We appreciate you running, putting your name out there, and thanks for being anti-establishment.
Okay, man. Good talking to you.
All righty. Polls close at 4 o'clock. You heard that, folks. So you got early voting going on all this week and next week. Elections February 13th. Arkansas, thanks for listening. Be safe.